She was just a waitress. At least that's what he thought when he degraded her in front of his mafia associates and international crime lords. He called her ignorant, incompetent, a diversity hire who didn't belong. He had no idea she held 2 master's degrees from Georgetown. He had no idea she spoke 6 languages fluently. And he definitely had no idea that she'd spent 3 years prosecuting men exactly like him. That she knew every dirty deal, every betrayal, every body he'd buried to build his empire. What happened next? She destroyed his entire criminal network in less than 10 minutes. Speaking in languages he never expected her to understand, revealing secrets he thought were protected by fear and violence. She turned his own partners against him, Russians, Chinese, Arabs, Italians, each one learning in their native tongue that he planned to betray them all. This mafia boss went from untouchable to hunted. His deals collapsed. His allies drew weapons. His empire fractured in real time. And it all started with a single drop of wine. Stay with me because what you're about to hear will make you believe that sometimes the person you underestimate the most, the black woman you dismiss, the waitress you mock, the voice you try to silence, is the one who can bring your whole world crashing down. Not with violence. Not with money. But with truth spoken in languages you never thought she'd master, revealing corruption you never thought she'd discover. This is the story of the night I stopped being invisible. The night I stopped letting fear protect predators. The night I remembered that my voice wasn't just sound, it was a weapon. Welcome to Nina's Romance Stories. While you're here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. You know, there's a particular kind of invisibility that black women perfect. The kind that keeps you safe in rooms that were never meant for you. It's not about being overlooked. It's about making yourself small enough that you don't become a target. And I'd mastered it. My name is Keisha Bennett, and for 10 months, I'd been a ghost at Luminosa. If you've never heard of it, that's intentional. Luminosa wasn't on any tourist maps or food blogs. This was old money, Italian exclusivity. The kind of place where diplomats dined next to arms dealers and nobody asked questions. The wine list started at €500. The clientele wore watches worth more than most people's homes. And underneath all that marble and crystal, there was always an undercurrent. Something dangerous, something criminal that everyone pretended not to see. I moved through that world like I wasn't there. Black dress perfectly pressed. Hair pulled back in a tight bun. Face carefully neutral. I never smiled too much. Never spoke unless directly addressed. Never, ever drew attention to myself. When guests spoke Italian at their tables, assuming I couldn't understand, I kept my expression blank even as I absorbed every word. When I instinctively analyzed the legal implications of conversations about shipments and territories, I pushed those thoughts down deep. Because here's what nobody tells you about being a black woman in spaces like this. You're always being watched. Always being judged. The wealthy don't see you as human. They see you as hired help at best, or at worst, as something that doesn't belong. That shouldn't be there. And they'll find ways, subtle and not so subtle, to remind you of that fact. Could we get some real service here? A woman had snapped at me last week, even though I just refilled her water. You people need to pay attention. I'd apologized. Smiled. Disappeared. That's what I did. I disappeared. It felt safer than being seen. I wasn't always invisible. There was a time when I was exactly the kind of visible that makes people uncomfortable. Georgetown University. Top 5% of my class. 2 master's degrees. International relations and criminal psychology. I'd grown up in a multilingual household where my Haitian mother spoke French and Creole, my Nigerian stepfather spoke Yoruba, and the neighborhood spoke Spanish. By the time I entered law school, I'd added Italian, Russian, Mandarin, and Arabic. Languages weren't just skills to me. They were survival tools. Ways to understand the world's hidden conversations. I became a federal prosecutor at 25. The courtroom was where I came alive. I put away human traffickers, money launderers, organized crime figures who thought they were untouchable. I was good at it. Maybe too good. But being a brilliant black woman in those predominantly white spaces meant I was always under a microscope. "You're so articulate," they'd say, like it was a surprise. "You don't sound black." As if there was a way black people were supposed to sound. "How did you get this job?" Always with that unspoken implication, affirmative action, not merit. Then came the case that destroyed me. A massive human trafficking ring with connections to political figures. I had evidence, witnesses, testimony. But corruption ran deeper than I'd known. The case was dismissed on technicalities. Within a week, 3 of my witnesses were dead, their families shattered. And somehow, I was blamed for pushing too hard, for being too aggressive, for not knowing my place. The guilt ate me alive. Those deaths were on my hands, they said. I should have been more careful, more patient, less ambitious. I walked away from everything I'd built. The courtroom. The cases. The identity I'd fought so hard to claim. And I found myself at Luminosa, hiding behind a serving tray, finally small enough that nobody would notice me. Finally safe enough that I couldn't hurt anyone else. Or so I thought. You always know when a predator enters the room. The air itself seems to hold its breath. It started with our manager, Marco, rushing through the kitchen, his face pale and sweating. "Corsetti is coming. 20 minutes. Everyone. Perfection. No mistakes." The way he said the name, Valentino Corsetti, like it was a curse he didn't want to speak aloud. I knew that name. Every prosecutor who'd worked organized crime knew it. Third-generation mafia boss who'd modernized the family business into international arms dealing and human trafficking. Diplomatic immunity through corrupt Italian government connections meant he operated with absolute impunity. Untouchable. Deadly. The restaurant transformed. The best table in the house. Center position. Private but visible. A throne for a king. Bottles appeared that I'd never seen before. Wines worth more than I earned in 6 months. The staff moved with frantic precision, terrified energy disguised as professionalism. Then he walked in. Silver hair slicked back perfectly. A navy pinstriped suit that probably cost 20,000 euros. A neck tattoo barely visible above his collar. Old mafia marking from his youth. Cold grey eyes that assessed everything, everyone, like a predator calculating weaknesses. He moved with the confidence of a man who'd never faced real consequences. He wasn't alone. For men followed him like an entourage of wolves. Dmitry Volkov, Russian, military bearing, dead eyes of someone who'd killed without hesitation. Chen Wei, Chinese, silent, observing everything with the stillness of a viper. Samir Al-Rahman, Arab oil money, designer suit, the kind of wealth that bought silence. And Giovanni Russo, Corsetti's consigliere, nervous energy barely contained. They sat. The atmosphere shifted immediately. Fear dressed up as respect. Deference disguised as hospitality. And I recognized him. 3 years ago, I'd studied his file. Built a case. Watched it collapse under political pressure. My stomach dropped. Every instinct screamed at me. Stay away from that table. I kept my head down, serving other guests, praying I could remain invisible just a little longer. Sometimes fate doesn't ask permission. It just shoves you into the fire. Rosa, our senior waitress, appeared beside me near the kitchen, her face suddenly pale. "I can't do it," she whispered urgently. "I'm sick. I need to go home." But her eyes weren't sick. They were terrified. She'd been assigned to Corsetti's table. Marco's panic was immediate. "Someone needs to cover. Now." He looked around desperately. Every server suddenly had urgent tasks elsewhere. Glasses to polish. Tables to clear. Anything to avoid that center table where death and money sat making deals. Then his eyes found me. "Keisha. You're taking it." My heart stopped. "Marco, I can't. That wasn't a request." The fear crashed over me in waves. I knew who Corsetti was. What he'd done. The people who'd disappeared for crossing him. Being near him meant being visible. And visibility meant danger. But I had no choice. I picked up the wine bottles with shaking hands. A €3,000 Barolo and a rare Brunello di Montalcino. The weight of them felt like carrying my own execution. Every step toward that table felt heavier than the last. My training kicked in. Steady hands, neutral expression, invisible presence. But inside, I was screaming. They didn't notice me at first. Corsetti was mid-sentence, speaking rapid Italian to his associates. "The shipment from Odessa arrives Thursday. 15 containers. Volkov's weapons go through Rotterdam, then split, half to Syria, half to Yemen." I understood every word. The casual discussion of arming conflicts. The indifference to human suffering. But I kept my face blank, my movements practiced and smooth. I reached for the first glass. Samir Alramon's. Poured without making a sound. Then Chen Wei's. Perfect pour. No trembling. Then I moved to Corsetti's glass. My hand was steady. The wine caught the crystal chandelier light, deep red like blood. Almost done. Almost invisible again. Almost safe. It was just one drop. One single drop that changed everything. I reached to pour Corsetti's wine, the bottle angled perfectly, my hand steady despite the fear coursing through me. He was telling a story, gesturing broadly about some deal he'd closed, his voice loud and commanding. Then, mid-sentence, he made a sudden dramatic gesture to emphasize his point. His arm shot out, directly into mine. The bottle tilted. Just slightly. Just enough. A single drop of wine fell. Dark red against the navy fabric of his sleeve. Barely visible. Almost nothing. Time froze. Corsetti's eyes dropped to his sleeve. The entire table went silent. His jaw clenched. And when he looked up at me, his face transformed into something terrifying. "Che Cazzo." The words exploded from him. "Are you blind or just stupid?" The entire restaurant seemed to stop breathing. His associates shifted in their seats, uncomfortable but silent. Complicit. "I'm so sorry, sir," I said immediately, professionally, keeping my voice steady. "Let me get something too." "Sorry." He stood up, towering over me. 6 feet of rage and entitlement. "You just ruined a €20,000 suit, and you're sorry?" His eyes raked over me with undisguised contempt. And then it came, the thing I'd been enduring my entire life, the thing that cut deeper than any insult about competence. "Let me guess," he said, his voice dripping with venom. "Diversity hire? They needed some color, so they hired you even though you clearly can't handle the job." The words hit like a physical blow. Around us, other diners were watching now. Some looked away, embarrassed. Others watched with morbid fascination. His associates said nothing. Dimitri smirked. Chinwei's face remained neutral. Samir looked uncomfortable but didn't intervene. Corsetti leaned closer, his voice dropping to a cruel whisper that still carried. In my country, people like you know their place. Something inside me began to crack. If you are still listening and feel this story touching something inside you, take a moment to subscribe to our channel, to like and share this video so we can continue bringing heartfelt stories every day. And if it isn't too much to ask, would you tell me where you're watching from? Leave a comment below and let us know which corner of the world this story has reached. We treasure every word you share with us. He didn't just want to belittle me. He wanted to make sure everyone knew their place, especially mine. Do you have any idea what this suit costs? Corsetti's voice rose, filling the restaurant. 20,000 euros. Custom tailored in Milan. And you can't even pour wine without destroying it. His associates reacted exactly as he wanted. Dimitri chuckled darkly. Samir looked away but didn't object. Chinwei remained stone-faced. Gio shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Complicity through silence. Marco rushed over, his face desperate. Mr. Corsetti, please. I apologize profusely. The meal is completely complimentary. And I assure you, this employee will be fired. Corsetti finished for him. Good. She should be. He turned back to me, his eyes raking over me with disgust. Look at her. Probably didn't even finish school. What are you, 25? 26? This is it for you. This is your peak. Serving people who actually matter. The words landed like blows. Each one carefully chosen. Each one designed to cut. Here, they give people like you jobs you can't handle, he continued. Diversity. Quotas. Make the restaurant look progressive. But you don't have the intelligence, the work ethic, he waved his hand dismissively. Whatever it takes to actually belong in a place like this. Around us, the other diners watched. Some looked uncomfortable but did nothing. Others watched with the fascination people have for public humiliation. No one intervened. No one said stop. Inside me, every instinct screamed the same thing. Stay silent, stay small, stay safe. Apologize again. Disappear. That's what had kept me alive for 10 months. That's what had protected me. But something was breaking. 10 months of swallowing my voice. Years of microaggressions. A lifetime of being told I didn't belong, that I wasn't enough, that my place was beneath people like him. The crack widened. And suddenly, I wasn't afraid anymore. I was furious. There's a moment when you realize that silence isn't protection. It's participation in your own erasure. I set the wine bottle down on the table. Slowly. Deliberately. The crystal met marble with a soft click that somehow carried through the entire restaurant. My hands were steady. Years of courtroom experience flooding back. The prosecutor I'd been, the one I'd buried, rising to the surface like she'd never left. I straightened to my full height. Shoulders back. Chin up. And for the first time since Corsetti sat down, I looked him directly in the eyes. You asked if I finished school, I said. My voice was clear, educated, powerful. Not the soft, apologetic tone of a waitress. The voice of someone who'd commanded courtrooms. I did. 2 master's degrees, actually. Georgetown University. International Relations and Criminal Psychology. Full academic scholarship. Corsetti blinked. Confusion flickered across his face. I speak 6 languages fluently, I continued. each word landing like a hammer. English, Italian, Russian, Mandarin, Arabic, and French. Which is how I know that your Italian accent is actually from Tuscany, not Sicily like you've been telling people. The Corsetti family is from Florence, not Palermo. You're lying about your own heritage. Shock rippled through the table. Dimitri leaned forward. Chinwei's eyes narrowed. Samir's mouth opened slightly. Even Gio looked stunned. And before I worked here, I said, my voice dropping lower, more dangerous, I was a federal prosecutor specializing in organized crime and international trafficking. The temperature in the room dropped. I could feel every eye on me now. Not with pity. Not with condescension. With fear. I leaned in slightly, close enough that only his table could hear the next words clearly. Which means, Mr. Corsetti, I know exactly who you are. I know what you've done. And I know every word you've said tonight at this table. His face went white. Each language was a key that unlocked a different truth, and every truth was a nail in his coffin. I switched to Italian. Not just Italian, but flawless Tuscan dialect, the specific regional accent of Corsetti's birthplace. The formal conjugations that marked education, refinement, linguistic mastery. Signor Corsetti, ho capito ogni parola che hai detto stasera. Mr. Corsetti, I understood every word you said tonight. His face drained of color. I heard you discussing how you're inflating the weapons prices by 40% and pocketing the difference. The Odessa shipment, 15 containers from Ukraine. You're charging your partners 12 million euros but only paying 7 million to your suppliers. 5 million profit that none of them know about. Corsetti's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I turned to Dmitry Volkov. Switched to perfect Russian Moscow accent, the kind that demanded respect. Mr. Volkov, he plans to betray you. Volkov's cold eyes locked onto mine. After this deal completes, I continued in Russian, Corsetti has already arranged to provide Interpol with your weapons' serial numbers. He eliminates his competition, keeps all the profit, and you spend the rest of your life in prison. Volkov's hand moved slowly toward his jacket. I knew what was there. So did everyone at the table. That's a lie, Corsetti started. I turned to Chen Wei. Switched to Mandarin, my accent flawless. Hey. Mr. Chen, he has already sold your shipping routes to competitors. Chen Wei's expression didn't change, but his stillness became more dangerous. Corsetti negotiated with the Sun Yi on Triad, I continued in Mandarin. Sold your routes for 2 million euros. You'll complete this deal tonight, but your next shipment will be intercepted. Your organization will be exposed. Chinwei stood up slowly. His phone was already in his hand, already dialing. Corsetti was no longer white. He was gray. The truth, spoken in the right language to the right person, is the most powerful weapon that exists. I turned to Samir Al-Rahman. Switched to formal Arabic, the kind used in diplomatic circles. Mr. Al-Rahman, he is dealing with your family's enemies. Samir's eyes widened. While negotiating with you, I continued in Arabic, Corsetti has been simultaneously dealing with your family's rivals. He plans to destabilize your entire region to increase weapon demand. He will profit from the conflict he deliberately creates. Your people will die so he can get richer. Samir's face transformed. Shock became rage. In his culture, this kind of betrayal didn't just end business relationships. It demanded blood. Then I switched to French. My voice carried across the entire restaurant, clear and authoritative. Courtroom presence returning fully. Mesdames et messieurs, Permettez-moi de presenter correctement. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce myself properly. I am Keisha Bennett, former federal prosecutor specializing in organized crime. 3 years ago, I worked on the Corsetti case. I know about the 12 murders, the trafficking routes through North Africa and Eastern Europe, the money laundering through his legitimate businesses. The restaurant was frozen, every guest watching. The only reason he's not in prison is diplomatic immunity purchased through corrupt Italian politicians. But everything said here tonight can be testified to in court. The case can be rebuilt. And this time, he won't walk away. The collapse happened simultaneously. Volkov stood, his hand inside his jacket, face murderous. Chinwei spoke rapidly into his phone, orders in Mandarin, sharp and final. Samir cursed Corsetti's ancestors in Arabic and stormed toward the exit. Gio Russo backed away, hands up. I knew nothing about this, capo. Nothing. The deals were dead. The empire was fragmenting in real time. Then the doors opened. FBI agents flooded in, tactical vests visible. And leading them was someone I recognized. Agent Maria Torres. My former supervisor. But the real question is this. When truth finally rises to the surface, do we dare to stand beside it? Even when it threatens everything familiar, even when speaking it aloud could change the course of our lives forever. Keisha's moment wasn't just about exposing a criminal. It was about reclaiming the voice she buried, the courage she thought she had lost, the identity she believed she no longer deserved. She stepped into the fire anyway. And maybe the harder question is, would we? Have you ever been pushed to the edge the way Keisha was? Where silence felt safer, but your heart whispered that silence was slowly killing you. Have you ever carried a truth so heavy that hiding it became a burden you could no longer bear? Tell us, honestly. Have you ever wished you had spoken sooner, stood taller, defended yourself the way she finally did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Someone reading your words might find the courage they've been searching for. Stories like this remind us that every voice matters, even the ones the world tries to erase. And if this chapter stirred something in you, if it made you pause, reflect, or even confront a truth inside yourself, please remember to like this video, share it with someone who needs strength today, and subscribe so you never miss the stories that touch the deepest corners of the human heart. Thank you for staying to the very end of this video. May your days be gentle, your nights peaceful, and your choices guided by courage. Goodbye, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.